This is the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, brought to you by Cisco. Cisco is here to help set you up for success by delivering high-quality foods, products, and services for your restaurant. Recording live to digital from the NCF&B studios in downtown Raleigh. Join us as we lead you into the kitchen, inside the bottle, and into the minds of the food and beverage industry. And now, sending back a cocktail because they simply didn't like it. It's Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss, and we have quite the treat on the podcast today. That's right. We are talking about Life Raft treats. And here to tell us all about it is the creator, the 6-time James Beard Award nominee, Ms. Cynthia Wong. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Cynthia. I know that we crossed enemy lines into South Carolina. I think your bunker is down there in Charleston,
Yes.
if I'm right.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, we'll be quick, but we won't touch anything while we're here.
Nice.
But we are doing this virtually for everyone that needs to know. And check us out on YouTube. We've got the cameras running, and you can see our beautiful shining faces and go from there.
And little tip, insider tip, if you do watch us or listen to us on YouTube, you get the episode a whole day before. Shh, don't tell anybody, but tell everybody.
Yeah, that is if I remember to upload it in time. But yes, typically.
I'll ping you.
Yeah. All right, so Cynthia, let's at least just go back to how we know you. We don't know you yet. We're going to get to know you, but how we know your business, Life Raft Treats. I did mention a little bit right before we got before we hit record that Matthew and I were down at Charleston Food and Wine. I believe, Matt, was it last year or was it the year before?
It was 22. So it was like a year and a half ago,
Okay.
April of 22.
Yeah, so we're there after party, going nuts.
I'll say it was like a confluence of two of the best things, and this is no hyperbole when I say two of the best things I may have ever eaten because they are still standing out low 18 months later. But at first, to my left, we had Cultura out in Asheville doing these duck taquitos that were on like a soubrette roller thing like that 7-Eleven has.
Oh, yeah.
Which was just like outstanding. And then I literally like turned to my right and somebody's handing me some fried chicken, which is actually ice cream.
Yeah, it was no fried chicken. That I would say, Cynthia, that maybe that we got to start there because I would venture to guess that for Life Raft Treats, that might be the most recognizable product you make. Is that a fair statement to make?
100%. It's the entirety of the business, honestly, at this point, which is fine with me. I'm glad that people enjoy it and they think it's funny and, it's something so different. I don't have a problem with that. I think that, the old chef in me would have been like, you don't want to see the rest of this art or whatever, but I'm fine. Yeah, it's good. I'm really glad that people like it that much.
Can you talk about like the creation, the genesis of that creation, where it came from?
Yeah. This was back in the Pastry Chef days, and I have 2 kids and they were really small at that point. So I was just exhausted all the time between 2 little boys and Pastry Chef job.
I can relate, Cynthia. I have two little boys. So I feel,
yeah, little
I
boys,
feel
man.
They are
yeah,
they're
good, but they're 2 full-time jobs. And I think I was just kind of dozing off on the couch and just tired. And I thought, how come the ice cream drumstick, as it's known, the ice cream novelty that you get at the store, how come it's called a drumstick, but it doesn't look like a drumstick?
Yeah.
It doesn't even look like the thing that you beat a drum with or the chicken leg. Wouldn't it be funny if someone made an ice cream bar that looked like a fried chicken drumstick? And that was kind of it. And I went to work the next day and said, hey guys, what if we made an ice cream bar that looked like a piece of fried chicken? And they all said, are you okay? Do you need some time off? What's up? And I was like, no, it's going to be really cool. Just watch. We're going to make this thing. And it just kind of took off.
And for the people who don't know, and we'll move on to the other things that you do, but it's an ice cream cone that you roll in like cornflakes to get like the crispy fried thing going.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And well, yeah, and it's got a little center. And by the way, to give somebody that's inebriated after having like 12 hours of debaucherous food and drink in the Charleston Food and Wine, to just like hand somebody some fried chicken in a vacuum sealed container, or I think actually you had the bucket, like a
Yes.
like a local,
They're in buckets. Yeah.
yeah, like a local fried chicken company would do.
Yep.
And so someone just like handed the bucket over to us. I think my wife was the first one to grab it, and she took a bite and went like, "Oh, wait, what?" And like it freaked her out. She's like, "You must have this," and handed it to me. And I genuinely thought it was fried chicken because we're at a food show. Why wouldn't it be fried chicken? And,
Right. And it's in a bucket.
Yeah.
Looking like fried chicken.
So, all right, but let's get into you a little bit more. I mean, we did kind of gloss over the fact that you're a 6-time James Beard nominee for Outstanding Pastry Chef nationally. It's a national award, not a regional award. So when you hear that, you are going up against you're going against the entire country, and however you want to look at that, it's a pretty significant achievement. Even just in the nomination, we always say like just being nominated is puts you on the map. But what I've noticed by doing some research on you is your story's pretty unique in the sense that your nominations have come from many different places. Like, you're like the Joe. I know it's been said before, but you're like the Joe Gibbs of pastry chefs. And for any of my sports fans out there, they'll get this. My one trivia question that I find to be pretty clever is there's only one coach that has won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. And that's Joe Gibbs when he was with the previously named Washington Redskins, now the Washington Football Club or team.
Commanders.
The Commanders, that's what they're called now. Yeah, whatever. But he had, do you know the 3 quarterbacks, Matt? Do you remember who he had?
Mark Rippon, Doug Williams, and Joe Theismann.
That's right. Good job.
Ding, ding, ring that bell, dude. Come on.
So, oh yeah. There you go. But for you, Cynthia, like you didn't just get all of this accolade from one particular place, and your history reads like it really impressively, whether it was Hugh Atchison or Ryan Smith or even Restaurant Lulu out in San Francisco. Like, I guess maybe like, would you tell us a little bit of like, where did you get your first nomination, and then where did you receive them as time went on? Because I'd love to hear that kind of arc as it went.
Yeah, sure. The first nomination was at Cakes and Ale in Decatur. That restaurant doesn't exist anymore. But that was there, and I had no idea what was going to happen. And someone called me in the morning and said, "Congratulations." So I was like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Go look up the James Beard thing." And I was like, "What? This is a typo. I'm going to take advantage of this before they realize it's a typo and fix the list. It couldn't possibly be about me."
Yeah.
So that was great. It was really surprising and awesome. And then I went to Empire State South. And then while I was at Empire State South, I had my first kid, and we moved to London because when you have the opportunity to move to London, you just should.
Oh, and real quick, while you were at Empire State South, that's Hugh Atchison's restaurant, right? And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, but the executive chef at the time was Ryan Smith.
Yeah. And at the time it was really more Ryan's restaurant. He was doing a lot of things outside the restaurant, and he was opening other places. And so it was really, it was really about Ryan. And that's, I admire both of them very much, but Ryan was fundamental to me growing as a chef and as a person. And he's just great.
For those that don't know Ryan Smith, just because we're North Carolina centric in here, for those diehard listeners would go all the way back to when we went to the BevCon episodes. We spoke with one Melissa Davis, who at the time was the beverage director.
Misa.
Yeah, so I assume you worked with her, right?
Yeah.
She was a beverage director.
We were at Cakes and Ale together in the very beginning.
Oh, wow. Okay,
wow.
So you have some history.
Yeah.
So she was a beverage director at Staple House, and Staple House in itself has a story that needs to, it's been told quite a few times, but it's tragic, but it's heartwarming, it's empathetic, it's uplifting. And oh, by the way, it also is like a really freaking great restaurant too. So like that, all of that was great. So you were not there at Staple House, but you're at Empire, but that was kind of like, sounds like that was like a nucleus for what then kind of grew out to be Staple House later on.
I think that when Ryan was at Empire State South, I can't speak for him, but I know that it was really hard doing that kind of volume. And, I I think Staple House was a really good thing for him to sort of focus in on a smaller crowd and have more personal dishes and things. But it's a market now. He and Kara have 2 little girls, and so I think they've decided to kind of make something that fits their life a little bit better.
Yeah.
Get back to London for a second.
Yeah.
You were talking about saying when you have the chance to move to London, you just should.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell. My husband was working for Whole Foods at the time, and we got the chance to move to London so he could work at the Whole Foods there. He was the specialty coordinator, so he bought the wine and cheese and chocolate and charcuterie and all the things that are really fun and delicious. And we were in London for about 2 years, and it was amazing.
I was kicked out of a Whole Foods yesterday, Matt.
Oh,
What did you do?
It was Mother Nature, actually, that did it. It wasn't my fault, not this time. But we had a storm watch, like a tornado warning.
yeah, like right around 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and I was just coming back. I wanted to pick up some soup, some tortilla soup for my ailing wife. I went to Whole Foods, and as I was driving in, like literally like a freaking tornado just came through and knocked all the power out in North Raleigh. And the rain was like coming in sideways. It was like, Forrest Gump in Vietnam. And then I got out, ran into Whole Foods, and just then all the power shut out of there. And I was like running to the back to see if I could get some tortilla soup or so. And the guy's like, "You can't be in here." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "We're not allowed to have any sales if the power's not on." I'm like, "But it's right here." I'm like, "Can I just grab this?" He's like, "Can't do it, man. I can't even sell it to you." I'm like, "Damn it." All right. So I was swiftly escorted out, which was fun.
Really quickly, what did you do instead of or for tortilla soup?
Oh, I just made her starve. That was it. She didn't get anything.
Oh.
No, we also had some Mediterranean food. There was a ton of food in the house. She just had a hankering for tortilla soup. That was it.
So you innovated. Is it fair to say?
Oh, yeah. I guess I had some sort of innovation.
Oh,
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think now is a good time to pause for a quick word from our proud sponsor, Cisco.
All right, yeah. Well, here at the NCF&B podcast, we're all about getting food service professionals what they need to do great work, and that's why we're teaming up with Cisco, because it makes so much sense.
Cisco has exactly what you need, whether that be tortilla soup right when you need it. It's innovation, but instead of you having to go, they would deliver it.
Yeah, Cisco stocks fresh, innovative ingredients and fresh, innovative ideas. The high-quality food at the top-of-the-line products, and the top-of-the-line products that you need to operate at your best. Plus, the business network to keep you on top of trends and industry standards while you do it.
Because you want it all, and you want it delivered. Cisco has the flexibility to deliver to any business at any size to meet your needs. Get the industry's largest supply chain network and most sophisticated logistics working for you.
Visit Cisco.com, that's SYSCO.com, to learn more about Cisco's worldwide innovation and delivery.
Cisco, at the heart of food and service.
Well, hey, Matt, let's take a quick break to speak to our friend Lane. Lane, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It was really good to see you last week over here. And
yeah.
great.
So Lane, obviously coming to us from Carborough Coffee Roasters out there in Carborough, and you're at the roastery right now. So what kind of coffee do you have in store for us today?
So what we're having now is a honey catuai from our farmer partner, Edith Meza of Finca Testa in Satipa, Peru. So Satipa is a part of the world where it's really steeped in humidity. It's in the Amazon rainforest. It doesn't get a lot of sunlight. So it's very unusual to find producers who will produce coffee in ways that are typical of drier and sunnier climates. So Edith said, heck, I'm going to try to do a honey and a natural process coffee in the rainforest, which is quite an endeavor. And she did, and she did an amazing job. So we're drinking her honey process catuai. What I noticed right away is distinct honey sweetness and honey crisp apple acidity. The flavor notes are very much plum and apricot. The body is full and round, and what lingers in the mouth, really lovely candied lemon honey flavor that just leaves a really beautiful last impression to a meal.
It is fantastic.
This is, I mean, you always do something great, but I think this is my favorite of all time, or favorite yet, because there's just such like a richness in the mouthfeel, and the finish is lasting, but not like there's no bitterness of this at all. It's really creamy and beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I love it. It's like sucking on a honey stick a little bit at the very end. So it's going to be really great after any kind of meal, especially Mediterranean meal.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. So for those that want to get the coffee, how would we go about getting some Carbarrel Coffee Roasters?
Sure. So you can drop by our website, carbarrelcoffee.com. We also have 3 cafes, Perennial in Chapel Hill, Cafe Driade in Chapel Hill, and Open Eye in Carbarrel. So you can get bags anywhere there, especially, and also Weaver Street Market has our coffee now. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lane. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Lane. Bye.
Take care.
All right. So, Cynthia, you were in London at the heart of food and service, doing your thing. What are like? I ask people this, and I know we're so globalized these days, but like, were there any major takeaways from the dining scenes and what the diners expect, or how the whole thing works, that are really different, that shocked you from being from the States?
There was a level of luxury at the high end that was just unfathomable.
Because it was London, or do you think?
Yes, because it's London, and you have such a huge banking system there, and really wealthy people from other countries, and so you have places like the Wolseley or Bob Ricard, which are just like, I don't know, it's like being inside a Fabergé egg and drinking champagne, and it's it's a little bit weird. But it's also something that you experience a couple of times. You're like, wow, this is really cool. This is what life is like for other people sometimes. But yeah, on that
inside
end
a
of
Fabergé
things,
egg and drink champagne.
Yeah, and then there's also just, I mean, the food in London is just incredible. There's just everything on the scale from, little sandwich shops to all the way to super fancy high-end Michelin star places. There's everything in between. It's amazing.
I just laugh at that. I mean, and Max and I were just having this conversation offline before about how things change, technology change. You always got to keep up with things. And Max and I laugh because when we were living in Los Angeles was not a foodie town or a food destination, and now it's like one of the top food cities in America.
Oh, for sure.
And
London had the same thing.
And London had, that's what
Absolutely.
I'm getting at. London, I mean, I remember it was like a joke. Oh, you never eat English food. It's terrible. And that just seemed to like complete 180.
Totally. And it's really fun to go to places like that where they are busting into it, because then you have so much creativity. People feel like they're not bound by certain rules of how things are being done. So they're just putting it out there and doing whatever they want.
Did you have to cook differently, bake differently? Like how they say, in the champagne world or the wine world, like when they make champagne, they make a dosage, which means like the sugar added after secondary fermentation for the American market, and then they make a different one for the British market, or like they make a different Coca-Cola mix for the British market. Did you find yourself doing anything like that?
No, I wasn't working at the time though, because we had just had our first kids. So I was really lucky. I got to hang out. I was hanging out with the kid and my dog. And so it was kind of like a fairy tale, honestly. It was really awesome.
That's
so
cool.
When that storybook ended, what
Yes.
what compelled you to come back?
Well, Whole Foods had decided that the UK program wasn't going quite as well as they had wanted it to. And so we got shipped home essentially. And then we moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and we were there for about a year. And then after that, we moved to Charleston.
Is that where you spent time working with Jonathan Fleer? Did you work with him at Rhubarb?
I did.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, like you literally have like curved your way through some of the most notable restaurants. I would say in the South, but I guess you're kind of all over. Was that one of the stops where you received another James Beard nod?
It was.
Wow.
And it happened after I had left. And I was actually at my house, and I was like trying to refinish some bookcase I found on Craigslist. And I was like really, really, really burnt out on restaurants and restaurant work at the time, and thinking very much about doing something completely different altogether. We had just moved to Charleston, and I hadn't picked up another job yet. And I was thinking about the next step, and suddenly my phone lit up and everyone was like, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what's going on? I didn't even realize that it was the day they were announcing. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right, well, maybe I'll kind of reconsider everything now. So,
Well, so that I guess we could kind of jump into this because your business is called Life Raft Treats, and from what I read, that exact reason is why it's called Life Raft, right? Like,
yep.
This was your life raft to get away from this insane restaurant industry that we all know, love, and possibly hate at times.
Yes, that's true. And I feel like it's just different for pastry chefs in particular because, especially now after the pandemic, well, we're still maybe in the pandemic, but after the lockdowns and everything, it just became really clear that pastry chefs are kind of going without. I mean, restaurants don't really have the budget. They don't have the time. They don't have the space for pastry chef. Pastry chefs tend to be expensive. There's a lot of skill involved. There's a lot of labor involved. And so I find that people have hired them less and less and less. And so I kind of felt like I saw that wave coming a little bit and was like, I got to get out of here before I have nowhere to work.
Well, that's where you're a pioneer, but literally you saw the evolution. Let's make this abundantly clear. People weren't going to stop eating sweets. It's just restaurants weren't going to fund a very deep dessert program because they probably could rationalize by saying, well, we could probably just give them chocolate cake and ice cream and that'll suffice, And
yeah. And that's, unfortunately, that's mostly true.
I mean, in a way, and Matt and I know this all too well from the wine world as like being a somm. It used to be every restaurant that was worth its salt had a sommelier on staff. Yeah. And then it's like after a while you realized, well, I mean, every restaurant owner knows like the first things to cut, you cut your marketing, you cut your social media, you cut your whatever, the valet if you had one, and you start just like cutting things when you're not making enough money. But pastry chef, sommelier, those tend to seem superfluous at a time. But you were really intelligent about understanding the market because I guess, I don't know, if someone just like looked at your Instagram for Life Raft Treats, I think you say as the type of business you are, like we're a podcast on Instagram, but I think yours says food truck, which I find to be like funny. You're not really just a food truck. Like you are a lot, and you might have you may possess a food truck, but that's like for the podcast we just say microphone. It's like sure, right. Yeah, we have a microphone. But what I find to be really interesting is that you were able to cultivate not only this consumer packaged good that we'll get into with deliverables, as like going back to what we said on technology with our Cisco read, but you're working with Goldbelly. You can access your stuff all over the country, but then you're also doing something that is very present right now. Like you're still doing all the beverage or all the desserts for Chubby Fish in Charleston. Is that correct?
Yeah, just for Chubby Fish. We made desserts for several other restaurants, and at the beginning of the year, we had to sort of change tack and stop doing that because the volume of distribution and shipping became so massive that we just couldn't dedicate ourselves to creating something new for a small restaurant that could only take like, a case at a time, which I totally understand. Restaurants never have like massive freezer space. And so between that and delivering, it was just a lot.
So are the offerings that you get, like, do you make specific for Chubby Fish, or are they just a vessel for the things that Life Raft Treats is producing at the time?
A little bit of both.
So, okay, cool. So some proprietary things. And again, I like to I'm talking to our listeners when I say this, if you don't know, because you're stuck in Raleigh or Durham or Charlotte at the time, and you haven't been out to Charleston, our previous guest and good friend of the show, Jen Rice, just wrote, I think it's actually like the most recent post on Chubby Fish's Instagram that she noted that they're one of the 25 best restaurants in the United States per her article. So that was pretty cool. And you were associated with supporting them on the sweet side. So this isn't some just fly-by-night shack that you're throwing your ice cream in. It's just like
no. I think they're the best restaurant in town. I know it's going to make everybody else mad that I said that, but I think they're the best in town. I love that restaurant.
I love bold statements. By the way, now welcome to the Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So Cynthia, when life, we touched on it in a second, but can you just get more into like, how did you make the transition to Life Raft? Like, what was the first move? And then it sounds like you're constantly scaling up this business. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. When I started it, all I knew was that I was, I mean, I think every chef, every person who's ever worked in a restaurant hits points of burnout, and you can kind of recover and bring yourself back around and find the things that you love about your job or the industry and sort of renew yourself. But I got to the point where none of that was open to me. I was completely done.
How far apart are your boys in age?
They're about 2 years apart.
Okay, so yeah, you and mine are just under 3 years apart, and like just an example of last night, the one biting the other's ears. It's like, are you Mike Tyson? And that's just a Monday night, run of the mill. So I
exactly.
Get,
no,
it's
the same over here. It's like they're beating each other with PlayStation controllers.
Oh yeah.
They're probably doing that right now downstairs as we speak. So,
Good thing you can't hear them. But anyway, so like, even I'm just saying, I just bring that up because I get it. Like, working in the industry, the burnout there, being a mom of 2 boys at home, it's just like, it's a lot.
It's a lot, and thankfully, my husband is amazing, and he does really the heavy lifting with the kids. He's like a really natural parent and very warm and nurturing. And so that's amazing. It's allowed me to really grow this business and sort of do what I wanted to do, knowing that there was a family net, like someone taking care of things at home. That's a huge part of it.
So the idea first to just wholesale to restaurants because of that idea about, we don't want to pay a pastry chef anymore. And was that the initial?
Not necessarily. It was just, it was kind of one of those things when you're backed into a corner and you always say, well, if I had this and that, I would do this. And my husband, John David, had said, well, what's your next move? And I said, I don't know, but I'm not working in another restaurant. I'm done with that. And he said, well, you've always wanted to make ice cream. So what's stopping you now? And I was like, nothing. There's nothing stopping me. Here it is. So I just started doing it. And it was kind of just this thing that I was doing to sort of, pay for my car insurance and sort of plod along one foot in front of the other. And the first year, it was, it was fine. It was good. It was fun. And the second year, it took off a little bit more. And then by, I think, probably like the end of the second year, I was like, oh, this is kind of a real business. I think I need to sort of figure some things out. And we were one of those places that the shutdown was really good for us. I know that's a really hard thing to say and hear, but we were so small. We were in a commissary kitchen that I was paying like $550 a month to have space in. I had one part-time employee. It was mostly just me, this employee, and sometimes John Day would step in and do a pop-up somewhere. That when the shutdown happened, it wasn't like anything really happened because we pretty much had no sales anyways. We were so small. We were doing lots of scoops and festivals and pop-up events and things like that. But what I had always really wanted to do was novelties. And that sort of meshed with what was going on with the shutdown really well, where everyone was on their phones looking at Instagram. And there was this funny little looking ice cream sandwich that looked like a piece of chicken, or, we started doing these peach bombs that looked just like peaches. And that just took off like wildfire. And it wasn't anything purposefully done, but the timing worked. The whole thing was like toilet paper cakes and that whole thing. It was just kind of like this thing that just happened and just kind of took off.
Yeah, I mean, God, and
the list, paper cakes.
The list goes on and on for the other things you do. You did like a TV dinner, like a tray with peas and carrots, and it looked like a Thanksgiving dinner. You've done like a low country shrimp boil, but it's it's like corn and shrimp, but it's all ice cream. I mean, you've gone out there and done some crazy seafood towers, like they look like oysters. So I mean, that's, by the way, fake news. Let me correct myself in the moment. Your Instagram does not say that you're a food truck. I don't know where I got that information.
I think it says that on their main page.
Maybe
I think it used to say that.
Yeah, it just says retail company, which is more what you are. So never mind. But anyhow, we had Andia's on recently, who is a local restaurant or local ice cream maker, and she just got some great accolades.
Top 3 best ice cream shops in America, I think, according to USA Today.
That's amazing.
Yeah, USA Today. North Carolina's like really popping with ice cream right now. It's wild. But so you're making ice cream, but you're not like that that is a chapter in the story that is Life Raft Treats, because you're taking this delicious ice cream that you're making, but then you're also presenting it the way a pastry chef would present it, I guess, and one that has a little sass and a little attitude. I mean, if that's fair to say, I don't know, but like,
no, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're a little punk rock. I'll give you that, and I think you give zero fucks, basically, like in the kitchen. Feels like it.
Zero fucks are given.
Yeah, yeah, that might have to be your next cake, you know. But I love that, like you are doing more than like you're making great ice cream, but you're like, okay, I want something to be visual, and I guess that's really like where. If you got to sit at home and you're stuck in a pandemic, as to what you just said, you're like, this is a way for you to jump off the page or off the phone screen, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be. But like that made an impact. Surely I would assume. I mean that.
Yep.
And for us morons that were sitting there drinking and eating a Charleston, wine and food, it's like, holy crap, that was a lasting memory for us. In a place where everyone was doing something that was a lasting memory, this kind of superseded a lot. It was like, even in setting this up, I text Matt, I was like, hey, you know the fried chicken ice cream, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. We booked Cynthia on the show. She's going to be on. It's like, oh, awesome. But it's like instant memory recall, like that. You like touched people with like what you're doing there, which I find to be pretty awesome. And I like to go on to like give you your accolades, because that's what they're there for, so people know. But Cherry Bomb also just put you Cherry Bomb up there in New York. Great podcast as well. They named you in the top 100. What is it? The Fashion-y Food Magazine's top honor for influential industry women. And then may I please just quote you, because this was really funny and this will give a little insight as to your humor. Wong said she, quote unquote, double checked if she wasn't on a list of the 100 most socially awkward Asians or 100 bougiest former stoners who wish someone would describe them as the David Foster Wallace of ice cream, end quote. I mean, no one just says that. Was that just off the top of your head?
Kind of, because I mean, like, I just, I appreciate all the shout outs we get and all the recognition, but at the end of the day, it's going to be poop in 24 hours. I mean, people take themselves so seriously about food and Instagram, and I mean, I want people to enjoy our food, and I hope they do. And I don't take myself seriously. I don't think I've changed world history, because I made something look like fried chicken. My goals are different, very different now than they were when I was a chef. When you're a chef in that kind of chefy world, those accolades mean a lot. And sometimes they take over people's entire personalities or motivations. But for me in this business, growing the business and scaling it, my big thing is that I'm trying to take as many people along with me as I can, the people on my team. It's mostly women. And, I want to show them that they can love food and work in food and not have this totally insane schedule, exploitation, abuse, whatever. It doesn't have to exist.
Yeah.
And then hopefully at one point everyone gets a fat check and we all go to the beach or something.
So would you say that the Life Raft did kind of save your, like, not to be so melodramatic, but like saved your work life in a sense?
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. It's funny. My 10-year-old daughter and I, actually, speaking of women's empowerment and all, we saw Barbie over the weekend, which was phenomenal. And Matt, have you seen Barbie yet?
I have not. No.
It's a must see. It's a must see. So we're actually at Super Rica, Ford Fry's restaurant out there in the Fenton, but he's, I think he's from Atlanta, right? Ford, I think, is down there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The server gave remarkable service, and I rarely ever answer those like review text when you leave a restaurant. They're like, "How was our service?" I'm always like, "Whatever." But I felt compelled to give like really positive service because I got exceptional service, and in this industry, you rarely see that. And it's like this guy really like went above and beyond to just be cordial, inviting, and really nice. So shout out to Tyler D. I don't know him other than he was my server, but he was excellent there at Super Rica. But I also said to my daughter, she's like, "Dad, you have a lot of opinions about people like in public." And I said, "Yeah, the service industry has made me hate humans."
Yes.
I find that to be the case. And it is tough. It's daunting because you're just dealing with people on quantity, you know, it's like no matter what. So you're going to get some bad quality in there. But now in your world, like, I don't know how many interactions with humans do you have in a typical work day?
It's really just my team. You know, we do events and pop-ups, and the people on that team tend to be people who can, you know, have a pretty thick skin, and you know, the interactions are short on an ice cream truck. You're not serving them wine and all this stuff, and you know, they're like, oh, I want an ice cream bar, and you give them an ice cream bar, and the whole exchange is kind of done. And because we're a pop-up truck and, you know, we don't have a shop, it tends to weed out the people that are not really fun to deal with, because you kind of have to find us and you have to kind of look for us. And so you've got to kind of want it. And that tends to be like a core bunch of regulars that are just really, really, really lovely.
Yeah, that's cool. I want to know, speak to us about Goldbelly. So this is something that my wife kind of educated me on. And if I'm always like the last to know this stuff, and then I'm like, oh, Goldbelly, that's kind of cool. But I mean, from what I know, it's a delivery company that basically gets you high craft products. It could be a lot of times food related. I think mostly food related, right?
It's all food.
It's all food. Okay, yeah, yeah. You can't get your Jordans on it, but I bet you could make Jordan ice cream shoes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. There it is.
Matt, that'll be your birthday present.
That'd be great.
But what's the relationship with Goldbelly like for like a consumer packaged good company? Like, do you just put it up there? Do you have to be selected? Is it like are they very selective with who is on their site? It seems pretty elite.
I'm not really sure how selective they are. I'm not really part of that process. They approached us because this wonderful lady named Vanessa had our not fried chicken somewhere, and she said, oh my God, you guys have got to get this shipping and da 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 da. And we were like, oh, we're really small, we don't know if we can do it.
Yeah.
And it happened in October 2020. So, you know, shipping was really good for us then. We, again, like the timing was fantastic on it to ship something that everyone was seeing on Instagram to their houses when things were still kind of shut down. Lots of parts of the country was really great for us. You know, they kind of function as sort of like a platform and kind of like a shipping consolidator, because we had to ship our products overnight. You know, if someone wanted to get something from us without Goldbelly, the shipping alone would cost like $150, $200 to ship an 8 or 10 pound box overnight is incredibly expensive. And so that cuts down the shipping costs. And, you know, they deal with like UPS for us. And so when we print labels, we just press a button, the labels print. And they deal with customer service, which is really good for a place that's as small as ours, where we just don't have enough of a team to answer phone calls and answer emails and, you know, make labels and all that kind of stuff.
And your stuff all comes like on dry ice, right? So like,
Yep.
But you do all that yourself in-house and like,
Yep.
And then, so everything comes directly from you, but it's kind of like
they handle the
mitigate,
shipping logistics.
Yeah, they mitigate the logistics.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so when you talked about that a little bit, being in a small commissary kitchen and now scaling up to be in somewhat national distribution, how has that changed your business? Are you still able to source the same ingredients, and what kind of facility are you in now?
We're in a 6,500 square foot warehouse. Part of it is built out as a lab where we make all the product. And then a big portion of it is shipping, because shipping boxes take up a lot of space, as it turns out. And you have to have a forklift for them and all these other things that you learn.
You have to have a forklift driver then too, unless it's provided by the warehouse.
Yeah, no, the ladies know how to use the forklift. It's pretty awesome. And, you know, just in the scaling up of that, we've got to make some modifications to the space we're in now to make packaging more efficient, you know, make the lab more efficient. And we've got 3 years left on the lease. And in 3 years, we are, you know, I guarantee we'll be moving into a custom built dairy plant, because there's nothing between what we're doing now and the scale up where we don't have to build our own plant, basically.
Wow. And what about the ingredients? Because one of the tenets of Life Raft was sourcing to try to keep it local, right? Are you still able to
we're
do
still
that?
using the same milk we used when we started off, Low Country Creamery. He's about an hour and 45 minutes from here.
Very cool.
Nice.
So I just want to, because it went by very quickly, but you had a moment where you talked to your husband, who deserves a nice shout out because it sounds like not only is he an awesome parent, but a inspiration or let's say a knocker down of barriers, where he said to you, you know, what's stopping you? You said you want to make your ice cream, and what's stopping you? And I think I just know for myself, so many of us are in those moments that we want to do something, or we have this idea and we need somebody or some inspiration to say, what's stopping you? And so,
Yeah.
like, I think I just wanted to touch on that moment again, because I think it's such it's a really great lesson for people out there listening, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are having the same thought at this exact moment. It's like, what's stopping me? I have this idea. I have this passion. What's stopping me?
Right. And so much of it, you can talk yourself out of it in a million different ways. And if I had started this when I was younger, I probably would have quit already because it's so hard. But, I got to the point where I was like, there's not much runway left. I'm not in my early 20s. I'm not going back to restaurants, so I have to make this work. And when you back yourself into a corner, that's kind of helpful. But also John David, my husband, he was really a big part of the push, where he said, there's nothing stopping you. Just do this. I'll help you out as much as I can. And in the first couple of years, he, a big part of that was him being a great dad. He is a fantastic cook. He makes great dinners. He just helps out a lot with that kind of thing. But he was also working, he worked in the specialty food business for many years. And at that point, his income was keeping the entire thing afloat. In January, the first year, I was like, hey, can I write myself a check from the home account because the business has no more money? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And then by October 2020, it got to the point where we sat down and I said, all right, so here's the deal. I need to hire somebody like you, but I can't hire somebody like you because I can't afford somebody like you. But I've kind of trapped you here with me. So why don't you come do this with me? And he was like, yeah, okay. Because at that point, he was ready to kind of get out of that corporate life and sort of stop having, big phone calls that took up a lot of time and just doing stuff he didn't want to do for somebody else. And so he joined me. And after he joined me was when the growth really, really started to happen, because he knew how to do the things that I didn't know how to do. And he got us into distribution. He knew how to do that. And, we call him the chairman of businessy stuff, but he takes care of all that stuff that I don't take care of, which is, the artsy kind of weird things.
Yeah.
So he's been fundamental to the growth. Yeah.
I mean, if Sarah and Felicia would join the podcast, we'd be like the next Anthony Bourdain show.
Yeah, we'd be dominating right now. But okay, before we get out of here, I have one little fanboy question I got to ask, because I saw that you spent a short amount of time, probably early in your career, on one Good Eats with Alton Brown.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay.
I recently just mentioned his name on the show, which we rarely do, but I'm a huge fan of his, because we were talking about, it wasn't even on the show. We were just talking off mic about good tapas restaurants. And I mentioned Mateo out here in Durham, and Alton Brown has the quote that he came out there and said the Mateo was the best Spanish tapas in America. At least back then when he said that, it was years ago. But I still think it holds true. Matt Kelly out there is doing a bang up job at Mateo. But Alton Brown is he's just a good guy for our community, I would like to say, like food and beverage. But you worked alongside him. What was your role? And are there any nuggets of on-set, anecdotal or something you learned while there?
I was the assistant to the food stylist, so I was pretty much the grunt at the bottom of the ladder.
You were the Dwight Schrute?
I don't even think I was anything that elevated, honestly. I was like a grunt.
Yeah.
What would I take away? It wasn't the world for me. It wasn't what I wanted to do, and it wasn't where I wanted to fit in. And it was kind of at a point where I was sort of denying the fact that I wanted to make food. So I was doing things that were food adjacent that made me even more unhappy. And, a lot of people were like, oh, it's Alton Brown. You should keep working here. And this is great for you and great for your career. And there were a lot of things that were really cool about it, but it wasn't the fit for me. And the people that were there that were prospering and doing really well, that was the world for them. And so that was when I kind of realized that no matter how awesome that job was. And, it gave me a lot of free time because it was freelance work. And so I basically was able to work like 4 months out of the year and spend the rest of the year doing, little projects and things on the side. It still just wasn't the best fit for me. And that was when I was like, you know what? Even though all the things surrounding restaurants I kind of hate, I'm going to go back to restaurants because there's something that I love.
You have such a cool confidence about you and this swagger. I mean, yeah, a lot of people wouldn't walk away from being on set with someone that, at least at the time was notable. And they had 14 seasons or something. It was it went on for a really long
seasons.
Time. And being from California and in Los Angeles and knowing the production, people will hold on to those jobs until they're forcibly kicked out, like I was at Whole Foods. But I feel like you have this quiet confidence. I don't know. Did you always kind of know you were destined to do something good? Do you walk around with a little self-confidence in you? Because it feels like you have that.
Well, I'm about to turn 50, and that's kind of a big thing where you begin to just give less and less of a shit what other people think. And having kids, you give less and less of a shit what people think. But at the same time, it makes you a more empathetic person because you begin to understand that, a lot of people just don't have a fucking shot because of the way they're raised. And so I don't know, it's kind of a combination of both where I think that I have, less tolerance for assholes. And so when I see an asshole, I'm ready to split. And I know that I can sort of bail myself out of other situations, but I don't know. I guess I would just say that it's, it's also growing up Asian in the South where, you've got to have pretty thick skin about what people think about you.
Yeah, I bet that's being from California. And really from Northern California originally, Asian population's pretty dense out there, and many of my friends are Asian. And then I moved to the South, and I was like, oh my God, there are no Asian people out here at all.
There's 10 of us down here.
Yeah. You're holding it down. So that must feel like a little rough at times when you're just you do feel like you're a fish out of water, so to speak, I guess, in a way. But, well, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you giving us some time, Matt. I didn't want to end it before it was time. Did you have anything else to?
No, this was inspirational, and it's funny because Cassie, our business manager, sitting in the room, who's an Asian in the South but identifies as Italian also. So we got to get you guys on some sort of support group or something like that. Yeah,
nice.
You guys would love each other.
You're Asian?
Don't tell anybody, Cassie.
You don't tell anybody. Anyway, Cynthia, it was really great chatting with you. You've left a bunch of nuggets here, so we really appreciate that. And for all of you out there, get yourself some Life Raft treats. You will eat extremely merrily and cheekily, I might add.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This has been really fun.
Thanks for listening to the NCF&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.